everyone. Hope everyone's well. So, as you can see from the slide, you're here for the Innovation Network for Health and Social Care in Wales meeting. So, this will be the first one for a number of months, and it's nice to see everyone for what would be our spring meeting. So, we've got a bit of a shorter meeting today. We did make a decision after the last meeting to kind of cut the meetings by half an hour, just to give everyone a bit more kind of time in their diaries in the day. But that doesn't mean that it's not going to be some really interesting things around innovation and the life sciences sector. So I'm going to give a little bit of time to let people give people a chance to come in. So this might be a perfect time to go and grab a drink for anyone who's just come out of another meeting, or go and grab a coffee. So we'll look to start in a couple of minutes. So now's your chance. So just going to give everyone a little bit of time to join. So good afternoon, everyone. So my name's Jonathan Morgan. So and I work for Life Sciences Hub Wales as one of our project leads, and I've been looking after the Innovation Network for the past 18 months or so. So welcome today. This is our spring Innovation Network meeting, and we had our winter meeting just in the new year. And for those of you who are new to the Innovation Network, the Innovation Network is really here to bring together people with an interest in innovation, be that from health, from care, or from industry or academia. But it's just really trying to bring everyone together and look to try and inspire and try and generate collaborations around innovation, and also just trying to share learning and any kind of information around projects that may have taken place across Wales or wider afield. And really keep that conversation moving forward around how we can utilize innovation and innovative solutions and approaches within health and care to support the population in improving outcomes. So it's an exciting time for innovation, and there's, as I can see from the list of those in attendance today, it's always great to have a mixed and a variety of people from different backgrounds come onto these calls. So I did mention earlier this is going to be a bit of a shorter call. We made a call after the last network meeting to drop the time slightly, just so that it allows people maybe who can't commit so much time to the meetings to come along and hear things, and gives everyone a little bit of time back towards the end of the day. So I think we'll get started, and people can join in as we kind of move along. So. Thank you, Priya. So we've got a really, really interesting kind of set of presentations today. Some of people you'll be familiar with, some people will be new. And today's meeting is really around that focus. So as some of you will remember, we've been walking through some themes for our meetings for the past 3 or 4 meetings. We've worked through kind of prevention. We looked at assessment and diagnosis, and we're kind of at the treatment and intervention phase of a pathway, or of how people receive or kind of are party to health or care within a system. So today we've got some great speakers to come and talk to you about some innovations that they have within their organisations. We've got And that we've got a presentation from a company called GoodBoost, and Ben, who is the CEO, will be talking to us a little bit more about that very soon. We've got James McHale, who's from Molnlycke, talking to us about one of their hemoglobin-based sprays for the use on wounds. And for those of you who know Molnlycke, are a big wound management company. And then we've got our very own Michael Wilson, who will be talking to us about some of those kind of future technologies and innovations that are going to be, hopefully, we'll be seeing over the next couple of years. And then we have Sarah from the Life Sciences Hub Wales Sector Intelligence team talking to us about innovation funding and some of the opportunities that people in Wales have to get some support and advice on the ways to fund some of those projects. So we'll get started, and I'd like to welcome Ben Wilkins, who's the CEO of GoodBoost, and I met Ben probably about 12 months ago, and like myself, Ben has I won't steal your thunder here, Ben, but Ben has a physiotherapy background, so it was really great to hear about GoodBoost and some of the work they've been doing, but they very much fit in this treatment and intervention theme in my eyes. And Ben's very kindly agreed to come and tell us a little bit more about that and some of the things that they have going on in the future around the GoodBoost solution. So Ben, welcome, and thanks for joining us. But I'll pass over to you.
Thank you very much, Jonathan. Yeah, I will share screen now. So I've got something to talk through. If I just, that should come up now. Okay, can you all see that fine?
That's good.
Brilliant. Right, thanks, Jonathan. So yeah, I'm Ben. My background isn't physiotherapy. I'm an osteopath, but I went into MSK research rather than clinical practice. So I'm a MSK champion for reverse arthritis, and I'm also completing a fellowship in the role of gamification for older adult rehab. My past research publications have been on aquatic rehabilitation and peer-led community-delivered MSK services. So a bit of the background of GoodBoost. We're a multi-award-winning social enterprise delivering personalised exercise programs with a focus on people living with MSK conditions. And we have programs that are for aqua rehab, aqua fitness, aquanatal and land exercise, so that leisure centres and community venues can work with diverse populations so they can be more active. And exercise in water just has inherent therapeutic properties, and the technology we've developed to make sure everyone can benefit from aquatic activities to maximise their health and well-being by moving more, having fun and feeling better. And even though our focus has been aqua in the last 4 years, we've extended onto land in the last 18 months. And so when we started 4 years ago, it was in response to the MSK challenge, and I'm not going to go through the entire slide, as you'll know the MSK challenges that present to society, the NHS, individuals, and the inequalities for the development of MSK conditions and the inequalities in access to treatment too. But essentially, when we started, there were already many challenges for waiting times for MSK services and orthopaedic services. And our focus when we started in Oxfordshire was for people pre and post hip and knee arthroplasty. And over time, we extended to wider MSK conditions, but the pandemic's definitely exacerbated the challenge faced by the NHS exponentially. And the importance of utilising local community assets such as leisure centres, swimming pools, community venues such as libraries and community centres to create supported self-management options for MSK conditions is without a doubt greater than ever. And the reason we started in swimming pools is working in water creates intrinsically therapeutic exercise and rehab options. It's low pain and low impact, but high rewards and high gains. And for many people, land exercise simply is not possible because of the pain they experienced or limited mobility. But traditional hydrotherapy is often reserved to private pools of private physios or quite extensive waiting lists or specific criteria to access them. And since the pandemic, the majority of NHS hydro pools have not reopened to normal capacity, and some haven't reopened at all. So there are solutions are needed to utilise public swimming pools in order to deliver aqua rehab and to make it much more accessible and to democratise the access to aqua rehab. So as GoodBoost, we work to transform public pools into therapeutic places. We started with our AI personalised aquatic rehabilitation service for MSK conditions. And over the last 18 months, we've expanded to include aqua fitness, aquanatal, and also a land program, which I'll go into a bit later. And the AI powers a front-end app. So it creates individually tailored exercises selected by AI. And for participants' first session, they'll complete a digital triage form, understanding their condition, functional movement, preferences, confidence, and many other areas to design their aqua exercise sessions, so that the exercises adapt and respond to feedback like a therapist. And those options are for independent use and group session delivery. And what this means is that groups can each have a tablet computer to take part in social group classes, which is fantastic for motivation and long-term engagement, but also that someone could show up at 9 p.m. in the evening, grab a tablet from reception and follow a program at a time that suits their schedule. And we know that our aqua programs improve fitness, pain, function and quality of life, and can be delivered at a fraction of the price of an aqua physio or a private aqua instructor. And we deliver them poolside on our bespoke waterproof tablet computers that we've co-designed with leisure facilities and hydro pools to be fit for purpose. And not just waterproof, but quick and simple magnetic clip charging, the tablets that float in the water, they have built-in stands, they stand upright poolside, and they're rugged as well because people inevitably drop these things poolside on tiled floors. And over the past few years, we've been supporting some of the hardest to reach and activate populations, mostly older adults with a high BMI, majority female. But swimming ability has not been a barrier, with around 40% of participants being non-swimmers to low confidence swimmers. They often live with multiple long-term health conditions. A quarter of our participants are from the poorest households in the nation, with 2/3 of them being physically inactive when they show up at their first session, and 1/3 of them having a mobility level where they report being able to walk a maximum of 100 meters, highlighting that the population we work with being signposted to walking groups or park run or couch to 5K just isn't a viable option. And we see considerable improvements in our users, from 0 to 4 weeks and 0 to 24 weeks for pain, function and quality of life. And we have a retention of about 60% of our users at 24 weeks, highlighting that we create this long-term behaviour change. And an independent health economic analysis projected that for each leisure facilities we work with creates around £90,000 of health savings in avoided NHS appointments. And we have these participants that stop their pain medication, they're sleeping better, they're moving better, they're even cancelling their hip and knee replacement surgery. The reality is water really works. We've just found a way that makes it possible for people to use the pool that isn't just swimming. And from our deeper feedback, we know how it helps our users, that if it was out of water, they'd struggle to be active, that it gives them something to get up in the morning, it's supporting their emotional and mental well-being, that they can ride their bike again now, they have greater independence, and the outcome stats that we create are great indicators of the impact of our work, but it's this direct feedback we collect, highlights the change we have on people's everyday lives. And we're currently delivering some projects in London in collaboration with public health and NHS teams. And in Kingston, we're working with volunteers who are visiting older adults at home to facilitate personalised strength and balance exercise sessions. And these volunteers have no background in training in fitness, but they use the tablet computers to then facilitate these personalised sessions, and they're there to make sure it's social and fun and interactive. With King's College Hospital in London, signposting patients on waiting lists and at discharge to a local pool so they can access aqua rehab, and a project in the Borough of Sutton that's being delivered where the physio department is signposting patients on hip and knee arthroplasty waiting lists into personalised aqua sessions in their pools, where the physios are also attending it for 1 to 2 sessions a week as well. And the aim to progress people from water to land over 1 to 2 months to make sure there is always capacity in the pool sessions. And these have been recognised by case studies in the NHS and by academic science health networks, and it's really great to get some profile for these programmes that we're delivering in collaboration with NHS services. And as I mentioned earlier, we use the time of the pandemic, because swimming pools are closed, to develop a land option. And this is to work either independent from aqua sessions, but also importantly as a progression option from water onto land, again, because we find with quite a few of the venues we work with, the aquatic sessions can get booked up really quickly and people don't want to move on. And so it's really important that we provide them with an option that's still personalised to them, so we can get them to move from water onto land. And another thing we did over the pandemic is we applied for Innovate UK Smart Grant, and we were able to develop virtual exercise groups. And this has been co-developed over 18 months with people living with MSK conditions, MSK clinicians and MSK charities. And the concept is around maximising the social and emotional support for exercise for people living with MSK conditions. And the virtual group sessions are based on a similar concept of Peloton, where people take part in a group session at a certain time and date. And these participants use their phone or tablet computer at home. The group sessions are led by a host, and in this case today it's all been volunteers from MSK charities, and their role is to create a warm and welcoming social group setting. But they're not there to instruct any exercises. The exercises are specific to every single group user, meaning there can be a group of 5 to 500 people, but everyone having an exercise program specific to their condition, ability, their needs, the equipment they have at home. And a large focus is creating these peer support sessions that also use gamification features and game mechanics for long-term behaviour change and engagement. And as well as the exercise session, which may last 20 to 30 minutes on average, there are virtual coffee mornings afterwards for people to have conversations and chat. There are mindfulness and breathing exercise sessions that are delivered by the hosts during certain group sessions as well. So it's offering a much broader option than just exercise. And how the concept came around was when we ran focus groups, we found that even where people had physio or rehab apps on their phone, there was no social contract to engage with it, because it's always on your phone. You could do it later or tomorrow or next week. But the moment you book into a class and you have an obligation to show up because you've made a social contract with the other people taking part in that group session, you're more likely to show up. And this is part of the reason why things like Weight Watchers works, because you have this obligation to show up. There's a social community element that you're taking part with. And that's what we've been piloting over the last 12 months that will be released publicly this summer. So overall, we're working to create options and capacity for supportive self-management in community and leisure venues, so that GPs, NHS staff, social prescribers can be confident to signpost patients into leisure centres, knowing that there is personalised, high-quality NHS DTAC approved services for patients to benefit from, and that this is a highly valuable option for people on waiting lists to access options sooner. And the benefit for leisure venues is it means new customer groups in older adults, people with long-term health conditions and expectant mums through our Aquanatal programme. And collectively, these services maximise swimming pool utilisation and create greater MSK support self-management options for new customers and members for leisure centres and community venues, with services that can be delivered with or without an instructor, which has been really important for some of the challenges that leisure centres are facing at the moment with staffing issues, in a way that's measurable in terms of what's delivered from a health and wellbeing perspective. So that's a bit of an overview of everything we do. And what I'm going to do now is go through a project starting this month where we're working with Escape Pain Arthritis Action UK Active to transform leisure centres across the UK into MSK hubs. So completing this work started with over 40 focus groups with older adults, leisure providers, healthcare professionals, and for the following groups, they all highlighted key challenge factors, which are each represented on the screen now, that needed to be overcome in order to create a system-wide solution for healthy MSK ageing. And for the upcoming slides, the grey bar on the right will show where these challenge factors are addressed by the solution. And what we found, there was no single product to solve this challenge. It's not a case of just putting GoodBoost in swimming pools or just Escape Pain in studios. in order to create a system level solution, it needs to tackle the key areas of the place, products and people. And we found that it currently takes around 3 to 8 meetings for leisure venues to create a posting pathway with local health professionals, which is a highly inefficient and impractical approach to scale a solution of utilising leisure centres more for supported self-management for MSK conditions. So to raise leisure centres' credibility and visibility with health professionals, this project is going to adopt a model that's raised the credibility and visibility for health technology in the NHS. And Orca has revolutionised the procurement and prescription of health technology for a system of audits and reporting. And this project will adapt Orca's model, but building on UK Active's leisure audit system, the Active standards, and UK Active are the trade body for leisure in the UK. It will review venues based on the quality and evidence of their MSK health services, the venue's accessibility, and then create a scoring system and location map for health professionals to confidently refer and signpost adults with MSK conditions, building connections with hard to reach and underserved adults in leisure centres. The product side of it will deliver a personalised and evidence-based exercise programme for people with MSK conditions that is not dependent on leisure staff availability or requiring an on-site physiotherapist. And the AI technology will deliver these individually tailored rehab programmes on water and on land, with the option for social group classes, but also the individual sessions at any time of day. And working with Versarthritis and Arthritis Actions, providing wider holistic options for diet, sleep, mental wellbeing, health coaching and more. And the public version of the app then offers continuity of personalised exercise at home in between leisure visits. And these virtual classes will be led by hosts and use the AI technology to then individually tailor the exercises, as I mentioned earlier, where every participant has an exercise prescribed for their needs, their conditioning, enabling mixed ability virtual group classes where the role of the host is creating the social and emotional support. The virtual classes also mean a friction-free option for the 40% of adults who would prefer to exercise at home who live with an MSK condition, and also really important for rural communities that have limited access to leisure venues. And we're going to be building all of our motivational gamification features that we've co-designed with adults living with MSK conditions and a data dashboard to provide the outcomes, utilisation and return on investment for leisure venues to evidence their impact. And finally, people. Connecting existing regional charity groups with the leisure venues, setting up coffee mornings and peer support sessions where adults can join sessions with other people living with MSK conditions, taking part in activities with people just like me, which is an important confidence builder and motivator. And these charities will provide training for leisure staff and volunteers to deliver excellent onboarding for new attendees and for in-person services like mindfulness, breathing, exercise and health coaching, which will also be available at home through the virtual groups apps, plus the option for signposting to further support on charity phone lines for additional advocacy and advice. And combining these place, product and people elements creates a package that we're working to transform any leisure venue into a community MSK hub, which are then local ecosystems offering inclusive, accessible, personalised, gamified health services for adults with MSK conditions, both in person at leisure centres and at home virtually. The project kicks off this month and will be running over 2 years and will roll out to 100 leisure venues in total that will include England, Wales, Scotland and Northern Ireland. And the 10 Welsh venues will be focused between Cardiff and Newport, and the first will be going live this August. I hope that was useful. Thank you for your time and more than happy to answer any questions.
Thank you, Ben. And sounds like you've been very busy over the past year from when we first met. I'm going to open it out to the group and see if anyone's got any questions. I know I've got a few, but is there anybody who'd like to ask Ben any questions on the presentation or what the exciting stuff that's coming up in the next 12 months? It looks like a fantastic project. feel free to put anything in the chat as well if there's anything else. But I'm happy to kind of get the ball rolling. So this is a kind of an area of work quite close to my heart, Ben. We've talked about it probably extensively on our previous calls around MSK and the management of patients who are struggling with that. But so from a technology point of view, you talked about patient feedback and patients can be quite used to being being treated by physios or health professionals or exercise professionals. What was the acceptability of using the tablets and not having some of those kind of in-person interactions when it came to doing their exercise?
What we found is we first released a version of the app. So when the pools closed, a lot of our participants who were attending swimming pools emailed us, messaged us to say, my pool's closed, I don't know what to do. So we retrained our AI quite quickly over 3 months and released a new version that was land-based. And the people who engaged with us started using it, but stopped using it quite quickly. And what we realized, the bits that were missing, the reason they attended the leisure centre in person wasn't the tablet computer, that wasn't a barrier, but they attended because they met John or Susan and they talked about Bake Off and the football and whatever else is in current events. And the first version that we created completely ignored that social and emotional side. And that's when we went out to ask people, what is it you need? And it was that's virtual group class element is what we've now designed in. But we know that a high proportion of our participants have very low confidence in terms of technology confidence when they first engage with us. The beauty of being in a leisure centre is that there are people there on site to support to use tablet computers and not their first time. So we overcome some of that technology and accessibility by having the hardware available, the Wi-Fi available, but also staff on site to support to use and learn how to use that equipment. But what we find often with the groups, they end up self-managing. People stick around for many weeks to months and become a quasi kind of de facto volunteer for GoodBoost, and they just end up peer supporting each other through it. So it hasn't been a huge value. Sorry, it hasn't been a huge barrier, but fully acknowledge that technology isn't for everyone. But the way we're trying to create that human interaction is through having peers involved in the service, whether in person or virtually.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think you talked about those coffee mornings, and it's that community support, isn't it, that is especially in my physiotherapy career, where especially in this patient group, where it's what they get out of it. It's how does somebody else manage with knee pain in the morning or stairs or things like that. So having that kind of factored in is really, really important, and also really interesting to see that it's gaining momentum. There's a few questions in the chat, and one's relating to the project that's coming up. So you mentioned that it's going to be rolling out across the Newport, Cardiff kind of area, but they were somebody. Sorry, I just need to scroll up. So Malise is just asking whether people outside of those localities can access that group for the project's duration.
In principle, the virtual groups can be accessed anywhere, and that was the whole idea around it, even though they'll be joining a virtual group, which may be the leisure centre based. From the virtual, there's no limit in the geography.
Okay, well, we lost you a little bit there, but
what was the last thing you heard, Jonathan?
The last thing I heard was that technically anyone can use the virtual
pretty
platform.
much. Essentially, anyone can. It's just that they, if they're in North Wales, they will be joining a leisure centre group that may be a Newport leisure centre, but there's no limit in the geography at all.
Okay, fantastic. And Helen, do you want to come in while before I jump to one of the other questions? I don't think we can't see or hear you, Helen, if you are asking a question, but let me try again. Or what I can do, I'll move on to one of the other questions, Helen, and if you want to ask one about then pop your hand back up. But so Colin Gibson from Cardiff and Vale. Colin, I don't know if you want to ask the question or if you're happy for me to. Totally up to you.
I'm happy to ask it. Thanks, Ben. It was very interesting presentation. You mentioned AI quite a lot, and I just wondered why AI as opposed to having an expert human input? Is it just a resource?
Yeah. Yeah, it's a scalability and resource thing. The idea that having a human to review every single participant's triage form and then come to an outcome is about scalability. So we did a lot of work at the beginning of GoodBoost 4 or 5 years ago, even before we set it up, to look at what was and we first delivered this in an analog setting, clipboards with a physio on site, kind of managing it, and there was a capacity in terms of how fast we could scale and roll out, and the group size. So that's why we started doing that. So we have our AI externally audited by the Aquatic Physiotherapy of Chartered Physiotherapists, and they annually review to make sure that it's doing what would be expected as an outcome of an exercise prescription with someone with this condition, with this background, with this diagnosis. We're also this year publishing our largest clinical trial that looks at a broad MSK population in terms of the improvement in their MSK outcomes, but also to look at where exercise suitability that was selected by the AI. So that was the reason why we chose AI, but we're doing a lot of work to make sure that it is what the output is safe, suitable and appropriate as well.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Colin. So there's a few more questions in the chat. Helen, did you want to come in? No, it's nice to give people the opportunity to come on and ask some questions.
Thank you. Can you hear me now?
Yes, we can. Do you mind introducing yourself? Is that
Sorry.
right?
Yeah, sure. I'm Helen Matthews. I'm a director in the National Botanic Garden of Wales, which is out west, and I'm a psychiatrist by profession. But, you know, two different roles. I suppose one thing, straight away is to say it'd be good to link up and hear more about the project, because obviously somewhere like the National Botanic Garden of Wales could become a potential centre for the, you know, for being a part of that rehab network. So that is one thing outside this room would be good to link up strategically. But the whole area I'm really wrestling with is how realistic is it currently for somebody to be socially prescribed, to be prescribed a system like this? Because I think there's a lot of appetite, but I think actually making it happen realistically, as both in my clinician hat, but also I'm aware of us trying to form networks with, say, local health boards, GP practices, that it's incredibly difficult to get that, you know, that allowance then that allows this to be set free.
Yeah, and so I also sit as a trustee of Health Watch in South West London, and so when we run the social prescribing program, I know how challenging it is. So how we're trying to go over this is that's the reason why I mentioned about Orca. What Orca have achieved really successfully is the adoption of medical technology and medical apps into the NHS, and a lot of that is about raising visibility, but also credibility of these options that could be recommended, signposted, prescribed, or procured. So by creating an audit system, working with the UK trade body, UK Active for Leisure, we're hoping to recreate that. We're also going to be working with the National Academy for Social Prescribing to not only develop the standards and governance, but also the dissemination of this to social prescribers so they're aware of it in the geographic pockets where we'll be piloting this. From anecdotally, where we already work in around the UK, we know that we have to proactively engage the social prescribing teams, GPs or physiotherapists once a leisure centre is set up. But a lot of it is awareness. So often swimming is suggested by a GP, but it's just being aware that this is an option in the local leisure centre. And the moment we then provide them with a pack to say that we're NHS DTAC approved, here's our research, here's our background, here's our quality standards, it means that they feel confident signposting in. And that's been how we've overcome the signposting issue with social prescribers historically.
Thank you for that. I think it would perhaps be useful at some point to have some discussions about, you know, moving through some of those barriers for us here in Wales and see what would be accepted. Thank you.
We'd be more than happy.
Thank you, Helen. Okay, there were some other questions, but Ben, I don't know if you mind when we move on to the next presentation, maybe to answer some of those in the chat. If people do want to hear a bit more about GoodBoost, kind of what's the best ways to do it? I mean, I know I follow you on social media and on LinkedIn, and you've Ben's talked about gamification in health, and you know you're a big advocate of that on on the social media platform. So what's the best way for people to get in touch with you about it then?
I'd say the best way directly is through LinkedIn, to send me a connection on LinkedIn, and if you want to connect directly for a catch-up call or a meeting. Otherwise, it's follow GoodBoost on social media or get in touch with GoodBoost directly, and you'll come through to one of our operational team who can give you more information about where we're working and where we're rolling out to.
Brilliant, thank you. And you know, MSK and musculoskeletal management is a big problem that we're having here in Wales, just like the rest of the UK and the rest of the world probably. So this is a hot topic, and thank you very much for sharing your journey and GoodBoost's kind of plans for the future today with us. It's been fantastic. So good to see you as well.
Thanks for having me, Jonathan. Cheers.
Cheers. Thanks, Ben. Okay, so we're going to move on to our next presentation. So thank you very much to Ben, and we're going to move away from rehabilitation to talk a bit more about wounds and wound management. So I'd chuffed to be able to kind of welcome James McHale from Molnlycke, and where are you joining us from today, James?
Rainy Barcelona, as I look out the window. So when we shared messages yesterday, Jonathan, it was sunny Barcelona, but you might have more sun in South Wales, so I'm not too sure.
Yeah, I don't think that's the case, but yeah, I'm sure everyone feels better that it's rainy Barcelona and rather than sunny Barcelona. So it's fantastic to be able to welcome James. So James is the global value-based partnerships manager for Molnlycke, and so James is going to talk to us today about Granulox and some of the technology that they're using in Molnlycke for wound management. So I'm gonna pass straight over to you, James, and if you don't mind, there'll be some questions at the end, I'm sure, and we'll work through that as we go along. So
fantastic.
So over to you.
Fantastic. That's absolutely brilliant. Thank you, Jonathan. So I think we were supposed to have 25 minutes, and Jonathan knows I love to talk. So if you have to cut me short, then please do. So we're in the NHS Wales Innovation Network. So I thought we should bring as much innovation or interactivity to this session as possible. Bear in mind, we haven't got too much time. So what I would like to bring you to before we do anything is the bottom left segment. For those of you who aren't familiar, Mentimeter is a quick way of doing questionnaires or surveying people. So what I'd like to do quickly on this call, if we may, with the 20 or so people, if you're either able to get your camera phones out and hover over that QR code, that'll take you to 2 questions I'd like you to answer. Otherwise, if you punch www.menti.com into your Internet Explorer and put in that code, that will also take you to the 2 questions that I'd like your thoughts on, if we may. So you've got probably 2 minutes while I just introduce myself and Catherine and the business, and hopefully we'll have a few answers when we come back to that. So I can't see faces, but I'm hoping you're nodding or eagerly beavering away to do that. So fantastic. So yes, Granulox is what we're here to talk about, or oxygen therapy, and we'll get a little bit more into that as we move forward. So yeah, I'm the global value-based partnership manager, so I look after our strategic value partnership program, which is all about external collaborations which deliver patient improvements while working towards a common goal. And I've also got on the call as well Catherine Gloria, who's based out in Molnlycke's Swedish office, and she is the global marketing manager for oxygen therapy. So I'm not sure whether she's showing her face, but she's there to answer any questions and get involved in this discussion today. So who are Molnlycke? I don't know if any of you have ever heard of us before. We're a reasonably big med tech company, medical technology, with approximately £1 billion worth of sales a year. We are based over in Sweden and have been for over 150 years now since our establishment, based in Gothenburg. We have a strong history of innovation, and that is borne out through a number of our products, most notably the range of wound care dressings. So wound care accounts for approximately 50% of our business, and it's our big baby, if you can say that. We have a range of dressings foam dressings, film dressings, which are used for acute wounds, for mainly chronic wounds in the community. And we also have some really truly innovative products, such as the oxygen therapy range, such as negative pressure, and we're constantly investing in that research and development. We also have a strong presence within the surgical work. So many of our acute providers and your local acute providers would have some range of our products, ranging from the operating room solutions, which are procedure packs. So all the relevant products and components that a surgeon would need to deliver a certain procedure for a patient. And we also have drapes and gowns, and there's a whole host of exciting top consumables in that area. Surgeons' gloves. We are the market leader in surgeons' gloves, very, very tactile range of biogel, which is, yeah, as I say, is the market leader across the UK. And then finally, antiseptics, which is the smallest of our business areas. But yeah, the range of Hibby is prominent in patient bathing and pre-surgical hand washing. So I hope I've done a little bit of filling there, and we will have some of the answers popping up on our Mentimeter app, which never works when you want it to. But we're getting there, so let's just see. It's always good to test new things and try new things, isn't it, with different groups. So what have we got? Have we got any? Have we got any answers? Is anyone able to? People able to log on? Oh, here we are. Superb. There we go. There we go. I've not been patient enough. My mum always said that was an issue of mine. So please write your job title and percentage of time spent on wound care. I can't see anything there, but let's see what figures people have put in. So in 2018, NHS Wales spent 6.4 billion on all services. It's scary when you start seeing huge numbers like that, isn't it? In millions, approximately how much was spent on wound care. So we've got some, no idea. Okay, that was very honest of you. 5 million, 12 billion. Okay, that's interesting. So there's some pretty good guesses. Who shouted out 300 million? Let me put your hands up, or a quick pat on the back, because you're the closest. So congratulations on that. So it's quite scary when you start looking at the burden of wound care. And there's a publication that was completed by the team down at the Welsh Wound Innovation Centre, led by Professor Keith Harding, which looked in 2016 and 17 at the costs attributed to caring for patients. And what they found was 5.5% of that NHS spend in Wales, so £329 million. And that's based over an inpatient, outpatient, the drugs, GP visits, specialist visits, a whole host of the costs there. Some of the other facts which may be quite shocking are over 190,000 patients in Wales suffer with a wound each year. And I'm sure you can appreciate that the larger resource element is that within community care, where a lot of the chronic wounds are, a lot of the non-healed wounds are those more difficult ones. And district nurses accounted for £60 million in the system, and over 700,000 visits. And if we just think about that for a second, 700,000 visits attributed to chronic wound care. And when patients are admitted to hospital in the more severe cases, they've got comorbidities, cardiovascular problems, or maybe obesity or diabetes, the average length of stay was nearly 13 days. So, quick bit of science about the about wound healing. There's numerous different nutrients and factors which are related towards wound healing. More common ones that are well written about and well publicized are nutrition and the vitamins you need, also age, weight, hydration, circulation of blood, etc. One that's probably had a lot less attention over the years is oxygen. So oxygen's all around us all the time, and it's a key component for us to live, but also for wounds to heal. And wounds that are chronic in nature, or wounds in general, consume much more oxygen than acute wounds. And as it says here, the lack of oxygen impairs antimicrobial defense, which opens up the need for other drugs or antibiotics, new blood vessel formation, obviously the ability for wounds to epithelialize and join together and heal in a timely fashion, hence making them more chronic. So if we talk about, let's talk about moist, and just to take you back to what, well, let me tell you what moist is. Wounds are generally assessed using some quite established models that have been around for a couple of decades now, probably. The one that most people are familiar with regards to wound care is time, which, when you're assessing wound, takes into consideration the tissue, the skin, the potential for infection, the moisture, and the exudate levels, that wound fluid. And that's been well thought about, well publicized for a while. But what's happened recently with an independent group of clinicians and multidisciplinary team in Germany was start to adapt that. The whole premise of innovation is we always want to learn and be better and be agile. So they looked at the model and reviewed relevant publications and disseminations of information, and started to think, actually, is it capturing what the patients need? And they adjusted some of the elements, and for instance brought in the idea of supporting the wound bed, kept some of them, tissue, infection and moisture, but actually started to notice that there's an area which isn't widely looked at, and that's how important oxygen is in wound healing. In South, well, so you may be familiar with oxygen therapy. There's a range of ways in which you can deliver it, and all are relevant for the patients in the appropriate use. In Swansea, in South Wales, you are very fortunate. There is a hyperbaric therapy chamber, which is as it adds pictures, just a chamber that a patient can go in, sit in, and gets 100% oxygen into their system, and that's a systemic way of providing oxygen. And then as we move to the right, you start to move into a lot more topical ways of doing that. And as we move towards the right, as you can appreciate, things start to get a little bit more accessible for patients, and the relative costs of those treatment get lower and lower as well. So we have pressure delivery devices, there are dressings and gel releases, there are continuous delivery devices, and then there are oxygen diffusion enhancers. And as you can see with the area on the right, what we're looking at here is a portable can which can be sprayed in a topical way to treat a small or a specific area. So really we're getting the best value out of that product for those appropriate patients. Oh, change slide design. So let me introduce the product to you. Granulox is a technology which is supported by hemoglobin, and what happens is, in fact, I'll show you on the next slide. But what happens is oxygen is hemoglobin sprayed into the wound that binds with the oxygen, and the hemoglobin supports the transfer of oxygen to the wound bed. It's we promote it, and I can show you more about the treatment pathway, but it's an adjunct to the standard of care. So it's not replacing anything that nurses and care providers would be doing, but also gives you the option to add it in where it would be appropriate for your patient. It's very easy to use. As you can see from the can, it's similar to what you'd be familiar with a deodorant. You take the lid off. It's a simple spray, which isn't very technical at all. Simple spray for 1 to 2 seconds, which is delivered every 2 to 3 days in line with your patient's care plan. The evidence is very strong in this area. We have an RCT and numerous health economic publications which were written in Scotland to support it. And what it's saying is, in comparison to your standard of care, it's healing twice as many chronic wounds in 8 to 16 weeks, with a particular focus on, and where we've seen a lot of the benefit is in diabetic foot ulcers. And part of my role is to support and look at providers who are focusing on diabetes from a value-based healthcare approach. And in Wales, this is something that you guys are very passionate about. And Granulox, diabetes and value-based healthcare, with the health economic evidence to support it, really puts this product at the front of that innovation. It's not just used for diabetic foot ulcers. The product is appropriate for a whole amount of chronic wounds, whether that be venous leg ulcers, pressure ulcers, mixed arterial wounds as well. And as we've gone through a lot of the evidence that we've built over the last few years with it, what we've really noticed is patients have lower average pain scores. So patients with chronic wounds suffer with anxiety, depression, loneliness, smell, but they also suffer with a tremendous amount of pain in their wounds. And what Granulox, I would say inadvertently, we weren't 100% aware of this. What it's being able to do is lower the pain that those patients suffer on a daily basis. So here's a quick snapshot of actually how it works. So you've got the pink area is your wound, the dip there is the pink area is the skin, the dip is the wound, the fluid represents exudate, and exudate is what the wound naturally gives off to support that healing process. And if you've seen chronic wounds, or if you haven't, just imagine them to be they have a lot of excess exudate on there, which starts to really thicken up and become what we call sloughy. Now this makes it even more of a challenge for oxygen to pass from the air through down to the wound bed where it is needed. So having an intense spray of hemoglobin from the Granulox can onto the wound bed, and when it's sprayed on, it binds with oxygen in the air, so it collects that oxygen in the air, and then it diffuses through the exudate to the bottom of the wound bed. So if I just skip through this, what you'll start to see is moving from the spray number 1, 2, it's in the exudate, 3, it drops this oxygen off at the bottom of the wound bed, and then it carries on that loop of picking up more oxygen and dropping it off. So a simple example would be, imagine a bus. A bus travels around its regular route, it picks up passengers and drops them off somewhere else. In essence, what this doing is the hemoglobin is the bus, it's picking up oxygen, and then it's dropping them off at the wound bed where it is needed. We don't advocate this product to be used on every wound. We actually have a very strong global consensus document which starts to support clinicians in the appropriate places to use it. What we would say is, whether it's an acute or a chronic wound, cleanse the wound, debride the wound, and adapt the treatment as necessary. If within 4 weeks the wound hasn't healed up to 40%, then there's the opportunity to instigate Granulox for them. Try the dressing, try the treatment spray for 4 weeks. If it does start to improve, then continue to use it. If it doesn't, then stop the spray and obviously look at other treatment mechanisms, while I'm sure you've got the support of the clinical nurse specialists in this area. And then finally, as I say, with Oxygen getting more and more visibility and airtime around these discussions, we've had some great support with the consensus document that I previously showed you, with the publications in Wounds UK, one of the big journals. And actually, as we move towards the right, there's a huge European Medical Devices Award called the Pre-Gallion Award. And we were able to put together a strong evidence and consensus around the use of Granulox, and we're lucky enough to win that recently. So Granulox is something that's Granulox and oxygen therapy in particular is something that's just building momentum all the time in this wound care space. So thank you very much for your time. Thank you very much for your interactive participation. And if you do have any questions, let's discuss them now, or otherwise, please contact me on the email address on screen. So thank you.
Thank you, James. And I think it's so good that both these two presentations have kind of been around areas that are big problems, and especially over the past 2 years, where from an MSK point of view, it's been patients who have been not getting access to kind of rehab and having to kind of deal with those situations themselves, but also for patients who haven't been able to get those health professionals to go into their homes. So some of these wounds have really been kind of not getting the attention that they need over during the pandemic. So hearing about innovations which are accessible and deemed to be easy to use, but are treating it using technology to treat something in such a different way it's really great to hear it. But again, these are still problems that probably were problems before COVID as well, but definitely things that have probably been amplified during the pandemic. I'll open it up to the group if anyone's got any questions, but I'll kick off while everyone's kind of maybe thinking of then put it into chat. But what's the feedback been from on the ground? So from the teams that have had the chance to use this with the patients, and what's the kind of feedback that you're getting from clinicians, nurses, or carers or family members helping their patients with their chronic wounds?
I think the first thing is it's a bit of a paradigm shift to educate people on the importance of oxygen therapy. That's why we were very, very keen to work with the multidisciplinary team in Germany, who were wanting to put oxygen therapy within the wound assessment, treatment and protocol. Because actually, if people don't believe in it as a concept, whether it's using Granulox or using any other of those oxygen therapy protocols, it's never going to be able to support patients. Practically, there was a few challenges with the pockets that we trialled this in the NHS in England anyway. One area in Lincolnshire, at first the can had to be kept in the fridge for a certain amount of time. So when nurses are travelling about, obviously that has a huge impact on the flexibility of it. Now, I'm probably leaning on Catherine a little bit there, but I don't feel like they need to be kept in the fridge. The product doesn't need to be kept in the fridge quite so much anymore. Am I right in thinking that, Catherine?
Yeah,
Okay.
basically, once you start using the Granulox, you can actually keep it outside the recommended storage, which is refrigeration. So you can keep it up to 6 weeks at the room temperature. So it's very flexible, especially when the nurses or even the patient themselves start using Granulox. Then they don't need to worry, do I need to keep it in the refrigerator, or I don't have the access to refrigerator, for example. Then they are allowed to keep the Granulox at the room temperature for 6 weeks. So that's possible.
So that would align with what we're trying to with using it with patients. A nurse would be able to use that on a variety of patients across any given period of time. But the case studies that we're starting to build are very strong on the back of it. I mean, nurses tend to have started utilising it, as they often do, on their worst wounds, because that's where they always start. Oh no, we don't know what to do, so we're only going to use it on our worst wounds. They're really sluffery, really challenging, really necrotic, diabetic feet and pressure ulcers. But the feedback's been very positive. The work we've done around our health economics piece was in Scotland, NHS Borders, and when we took 100 patients who just had the standard of care, 100 patients where we introduced Granulox at the appropriate time, what we saw was the costs reduced 50% after 8 weeks. The consumable costs approach the consumable costs that are appreciated with that. So other dressings, secondary dressings, dressing packs, etc. So it's a very exciting product to be behind.
Yeah, definitely. And I suppose the discussion around the storage and the temperature just kind of shows how important it is to work with clinicians on the ground and the practicalities of using these technologies to kind of try and work out some of those questions in that innovation process. And I suppose that continuum you gave of kind of bulky kind of oxygen chambers where someone's going to sit there and it's a really good picture of how technology is becoming more accessible, using the same principles, but making it much more accessible and much more usable by people in their own settings or in a way that can be used and carried. And I suppose, the storage is something you wouldn't consider in those kind of early phases when I suppose you would, but until you actually get in the hands of clinicians, it's hard to do that.
I suppose just the thing to mention on that, Jonathan, is yes, it appears though technology advances and gets better and everything gets a lot smaller and quicker and easier to use. There is an appropriate place for all those types of treatment for a variety of patients. So we wouldn't advocate Granulox for everybody. It's just for those appropriate wounds at the appropriate time, as is all the other oxygen therapy treatment.
Yeah, absolutely. And you've mentioned quite a lot. Molnlycke are heavily invested in a value-based healthcare approach, and it'll be really interesting to see kind of what impact products like this and solutions like this have on those patient outcomes. So in the longer term, and I know you guys are working hard to try and get a better understanding of that for the solutions that Molnlycke kind of have in their portfolio.
Yeah.
So.
And I suppose I would like to say we focus a lot on a technology here, a product. A product can only do so much. The actual huge, the bigger impacts are going to come from the people, the processes, the behaviours and systems that sit around that. So actually, Molnlycke has a huge amount of clinical expertise and resource, particularly within the NHS, particularly in the UK, which is one of our big markets, to support wider than just the technologies. And actually, as I sat and listened to the previous presentation, which was absolutely fabulous, it made me think that maybe in this forum I should have shared more about our wound support app. So a visual app which sits on your phone. Traditionally, nurses go into a patient's home or they're in a hospital ward, and what they'll do is look at the wound, assess the wound, how deep is it, how much slough is it, how big is it, and all that is open to a lot of subjective interpretation. So what we've been very passionate about delivering is tools that improve that patient's care, and one of them is a digital app, sits on the phone, you utilise the camera. A camera comes along, take a picture of the wound, and it tells you a lot of information about that wound. So it's much more accurate, much more precise, and the patient gets a better treatment of care.
Okay, and is there somewhere where, so for those on the call who want to learn a little bit more about that, where would be the best place for them to go and do a bit more?
So it's called the Molnlycke Wound Support app, and what I'll do is I'll probably put a couple of comments in the chat here. and my email address in the chat here, and then you'll be able to reflect that and kind of reach out to me if you'd like to know a little bit more. But yeah, it's something we're extremely proud of and passionate about sharing. So yeah, please reach out. I don't know. Obviously, I didn't manage to see the question.
We lost him for a moment.
James, Barcelona's Wi-Fi signals aren't treating us very well. We lost you for a moment.
All right, now I've just been nosy and seeing if we had any wound care experts on the call.
If anyone's brave to put their hands up.
Well, Helen's got a hand up, but I'm guessing that's probably from the previous
one. From my knowledge of the group, I don't know if there is, but I'm sure people will reach out maybe in another format. But guys, that's been brilliant. James and Catherine, thank you very much for joining us and giving us that kind of. It really helps with these meetings to give a diverse kind of perspective on different solutions that are out there and different approaches. And yeah, it's been great to hear about Molnlycke's kind of approach and also the Granulox product and how it's oxygen therapy is being used in a different way now as a support tool. So fantastic.
Thank you.
Thanks, Jonathan. Thanks, everybody.
Yeah. Thank you.
Thanks both. Have a good day. Okay, so right then, guys. So we're gonna move on. So 2 great presentations, and I think different, which is fantastic. But I'd like to introduce Michael Wilson. So those of you who've been following the meetings for the past, over the past number of months, will be familiar with Mike. So Mike is our works for Life Sciences Wales. He is one of our health market analysts, and Mike's been kind of filling our slot with horizon scanning and kind of what's coming, what's on the horizon, what's the future of innovation in health. And yeah, and Mike's been very kindly looking into kind of the treatment and treatment intervention kind of theme. And yeah, Mike, I'll hand over to you to kind of inspire us with what is over the hill.
Well, yeah, thanks, John. So hi everyone. My name is Mike Wilson. I am the healthcare market analyst for Life Sciences Hub Wales, and part of my job as a researcher revolves around horizon scanning, assessing and analysing emerging trends and technologies in the healthcare sector. So as John mentioned, I presented previously at the Innovation Network meeting in February when I discussed the use of mobile phone apps in improving patient access. But today, on this topic of treatment and intervention, I'm going to be talking about advancements in the field of surgery and what developments we might be seeing in the near future. Next slide. So technological and medical developments have had a profound effect on surgery over the last few decades. Patients now enjoy less invasive surgical techniques accompanied by even better outcomes and much shorter hospital stays. Procedures that might have taken a day and meant weeks in hospital recovering decades ago can now be done in less than an hour, with the patient able to go home that same day. And the next couple of decades, we're likely to see even more radical change. Developments in digital and genomic technologies promise a future where healthcare is even less invasive, even more precise, and much more personalized. In this time, the role of the surgeon will also likely undergo a revolution as the boundaries that separate the current roles of different health professionals become a bit more blurred. And professionals such as data analysts and bioengineers will start to become more part of surgical teams as technology becomes even more sophisticated. So many of the technologies and advancements that I'll discuss are derived from the Commission on the Future of Surgery. This was a body that was set up in 2017 by the Royal College of Surgeons to look at the future of surgical care and to advise on how best to prepare for its opportunities and challenges. It was an independent group of 14 experts who were tasked with identifying likely advances in medicine and technology in the next 20 years and what their implications would be for patients, for the surgical workforce, and for the healthcare system. So let's have a look at what the Commission had to say. So with the publication of their report in 2018, the Commission also released a series of videos discussing some of the technologies they see becoming prevalent in the near future. So this video that I'm about to play is a short segment summarising some of those conversations. So see if you can pick out some of the key technologies, and I'll go on and talk about some of these afterwards. So hopefully this plays okay.
The biggest developments that we're going to have from surgery relate to a range of digital technologies. So I think in terms of sensors that are able to understand our current state of health and our key vital body signs, to sensors that we're able to have in operations when we're doing surgery, so individual devices that can give real-time feedback.
The minimally invasive revolution has been a huge advance, and I expect that a future driven by robotics and artificial intelligence will bring, if you like, more of the same. Previously very, very difficult, challenging, or even impossible surgeries may become possible. The planning, the additional scan data, the ability to make models, rehearse surgeries, to make bespoke implants and surgical guides and templates.
The principal advantage is our precision and achieving exactly what one wants to achieve without the hit and miss of freehand surgery.
And therefore, people appreciation and benefit when perhaps in the past surgical intervention wouldn't have been available to them.
So I'll just stop the video there because there's a whole other segment of the video that goes on to talk about biotechnologies like genomics and stem cell therapies. But just for the purposes of this presentation, I'm sticking to the digital developments. So even in that small segment, there were a lot of terms thrown about there. Here are some of the ones that I've picked out, and they cover a range of digital technologies. Talk about the use of sensors, measuring vital body signs and giving real-time feedback, use of robotics, artificial intelligence, the use of scan data in making 3D models. So we'll break down some of these innovations that the committee members were referring to and talk about some of the technologies that these involve. So the first one is robotics. So this is one of the biggest advancements we're seeing in the field of surgery innovation today. Now, to explain the benefits that come with robotic surgery, we have to consider what surgery used to be. So the way that surgery used to happen was that there was no choice but to do an open surgery. So this involved big incisions, and patients would take months to recover and be at high risk of infection. Then we were able to go to minimally invasive laparoscopic surgery, which was small incisions, but it came with real limitations to vision and movement. So surgeons were limited to viewing the procedure on a 2D screen, and the laparoscopic instruments drastically reduced dexterity of movement inside the patient. So the benefits that is offered by surgical robotics is the maintaining of this minimally invasive approach, all whilst being more precise and allowing the surgeon to see more as well. So let's see how this is possible. So one of the most prominent players in surgical robotics is a company called Intuitive, and their robotic system, Da Vinci. So the setup of the system typically involves the robotic instruments, a control console, which is controlled by the surgeon, and a processing unit in between, which translates the surgeon's movements to the robotic instruments. So here is another video, a short explainer from Intuitive, which shows how this system works.
So in order to translate the surgeon's movements of their hands into the patient, first we start with the grips. There's sensors in those grips, which sense obviously how open and closed things are, how much my wrist has moved, how much have I moved in and out or left and right in space. Once those sensors have captured those vectors in 3D space, that information is sent to the vision cart. The vision cart then applies algorithms on top of that to then translate those big, gross motions of the surgeon's hands into microscopic motions inside the patient. On the other side of the room, those series of algorithms control a series of motors and cables, which in turn control the instrument tips inside the patient. The time in between what's going on here in the surgeon's hands and what's going on inside the patient is called latency. And that latency needs to be measured in milliseconds for things to be safe.
Just a short explainer of how these robotic systems work. Now, robotic surgery is already happening. Intuitive have more than 5,000 systems installed worldwide. And in the future, we're likely to see more of these systems in surgical theatres. And as time goes on, these systems will become more versatile, lighter, and probably cheaper as well. And with developments in communications and 5G connectivity, we will see decreased latency, allowing surgeons to be not just across the room from a patient, but in a different place altogether, maybe in a different country. So this would vastly increase the availability of expert surgery. And as we head into the longer term, 10, 20 years into the future, the Commission predicts that we'll see greater robotic autonomy and machine learning, although it seems unlikely that there'll be a fully autonomous robots within the next 2 decades. We may also see introduction of things like nanosurgery for diagnostics and drug delivery as well. So another innovation that is sort of becoming used more often is the use of VR, virtual reality, and AR, augmented reality, in imaging. So advances in imaging and simulation, including VR and AR, are already being used to complement surgical training and planning. So the image on the left here is a photo taken in 2016 of a cancer surgeon as he performed an operation that was live streamed in virtual reality. That platform, which was developed by VR company Medical Realities, allows medical students and trainee surgeons to immerse themselves in the procedure in real time. Now, this shift in imaging from static anatomical displays to showing dynamic organ function is likely to extend across many areas of surgery. VR can allow surgeons to rehearse and plan complex procedures using scan data that is reconstructed in a virtual space. And it can be used by surgeons to more clearly explain concepts to the patient. So that the next video that I'm going to play will shows how this is possible. So this video profiles the work of a company called Surgical Theatre in visualizing brain scan data in a virtual space that can and the impact that has on patients.
Patients are looking for some hope. They're looking for a way to understand what's happening. What's made brain surgery historically pretty challenging is surgeons have to look at two-dimensional imaging and then in their mind's eye create a three-dimensional map of how they might approach the operation. We thought, you know what, we can intervene here and we can take MRI and CT scans and fuse them together in our software to create a virtual reconstruction and change the practice of medicine for the benefit of the family, the surgeon, and the institution. It is that person's anatomy VRalized. The Intel processor really allows our content to come alive.
We've worked with Surgical Theatre, taking our latest desktop and notebook processor technologies so that we can very quickly render those 3D environments in the exam room and allow that patient to have a real-time immersive experience while their provider's in the room.
Hi there. Good morning. Good to see you again. What you're looking at now, this is a three-dimensional model of your brain. You see the tumor there in green?
Yes.
Now you're getting something to see that most patients never get to see.
I was totally panic stricken. I'm not a doctor, so I couldn't understand what they were trying to tell me because I had never physically seen a craniotomy before. It's so hard to wrap your head around what they're about to do. When I put on the goggles, my surgeon asked me if I was ready to fly. In the moments where they were telling me really terrifying things, I also felt a little bit of peace from the way that it was being presented. I was able to in real time see inside my brain. I was physically there with them, looking at exactly what they were trying to communicate.
So in the next 5 to 10 years, it's predicted that virtual reality will become much more standardized and a more standardized aspect of surgical training, with training centers and teaching hospitals needing to invest in VR suites. It's also predicted that augmented reality will have a bigger impact, with surgeons being able to overlay data and visuals over a patient's body during surgery. So then the next aspect I'm going to talk about is 3D printing. This is one of the most innovative technologies that we've seen in recent times. So with 3D printing software, it can be used to extract data from patient imaging technologies and to print personalized and custom-made guides for surgery, and also to print implants replacing resected body parts or anatomical structures affected by congenital diseases. Developments in 3D printing are making surgery safer and more precise, and are opening avenues for surgical procedures that are currently too complex or have poor outcomes. These innovations will lead to an increase in patient choice, expectations, and a demand for bespoke care. The provision of 3D models to patients could improve patient understanding and facilitate more informed consent, much like we saw in that previous video on the use of VR. So this next video describes the use of 3D printing by surgeons to help them in preparation of a complex heart surgery.
Enter the 3D printer.
It has been thought as the ultimate visualization technique.
This is Alejandro. He's a researcher at the University of Wisconsin-Madison.
Visualization is a key factor for surgeons before they do surgery, because they are going to face something that they have only seen in 2 dimensions when they see an image.
Here we're looking at Joseph's heart. We start by acquiring high-resolution images of the heart. We then generate a model using 3D printing.
So having a model like this that you can print cheaply allows surgeons to do all kinds of things.
You see here we cut out the front part of the heart in order to be able to see inside.
They can actually look inside. They can print the exact size or blow it up. They can hold it in their hands. And Dr. A did all of this before Joseph's surgery.
Believe me, I spent a lot of hours looking at the model and preparing for that surgery. You kind of.
So as 3D printing templates, surgical guides, and custom-made implants are becoming more common in many places across the country, the next step will be printing with materials that are better tolerated by the human body, as a precursor to the ability to grow or print human tissue, a process known as bioprinting. And in the next 10 to 20 years, organ bioengineering and 3D bioprinting could bring exciting changes to healthcare, from providing organs for patients waiting on the transplant list to restoring form and function in patients who have sustained trauma or burns. So these are just some of the major advancements that we're seeing in surgery, though there are others that the Commission discusses related to diagnostics, advances in cell and gene therapies. So this is just sort of a bit of a snapshot of what is to come. So much more is available on the Commission's website. The link is there. I'll also post the link to the chat. And so, yeah, hopefully I've given a taste of what is out there and what is to come. So yes, thank you, everybody. Yeah, I'll hand it back over to you, John.
Thanks, Mike. And yeah, great. Exactly what we were looking forward to with that. Actually, really kind of shows some of how technology is really kind of pushing boundaries, and some of that stuff is quite, we talked about kind of fully autonomous robotics, which is quite far down the future, but as some people may know, Wales is embarking on a national robotics program, so everyone should start to hear more about how Wales is embracing robotics and utilising the technology in our own kind of health boards and in our own hospitals. So, we do know that health boards like Cardiff and Molnlycke are utilising 3D printing quite heavily in not so much treatment, but in how they're innovating within their health boards. So, but it's really exciting to see how these technologies are helping us with treatment and management, really at that kind of hands-on level with people and patients in Wales, so, and across the world. So it's fantastic. So Mike, fantastic as ever. So thank you very much, and yeah, we look forward to the next series. So. Talking about Mike. We've got. I'm going to move on to our final presenter, and we've got Sarah Taylor, who's also a colleague from Life Sciences Hub Wales, and Sarah's just going to talk to us a little bit more now around from an innovation point of view about funding, and we all know that getting engaged with funding and with innovation, and projects, it can require backing and financial backing, and Sarah is our internal expert on that at Life Sciences Hub Wales, and she just wanted to talk to everyone today a little bit about some of the funding services of the life sciences, and give a bit of an update on that. So over to you, Sarah.
Thanks, John. Can I just check? Can you hear me?
Yeah, absolutely fine.
Fabulous. And can you see my slides?
Yes, we can.
Yeah, okay, just checking. I have a different setup than I would normally have, so just worth checking. Okay, so thanks so much, John, for the invitation to talk to everyone today. So as John said, I'm Sarah Taylor. I'm a sector intelligence lead at the Hub, and I've got a particular interest in supporting organisations in Wales in making successful bids to competitive funding opportunities. So I think it's worth briefly touching on the remit of the Life Sciences Hub Wales. So we work with health and social care providers to enable them to meet challenges requiring the adoption of new innovations. So that's our pull. And we work with innovators in industry to develop early stage innovations, which is our push. And the idea is to achieve widespread adoption of innovation within Wales. So last time I spoke to this group was back in November, and at that point we were working on developing our funding service. So what I wanted to do today is to just briefly outline the new service and showcase a few funding opportunities that may be of interest. So they cover treatment, but they also cover various other aspects of the innovation pathway. So this is an overview of our funding services at the Hub. So services on the slide. The services have been under development, as I said, since last summer. A major focus for the Hub remains on networking for collaborative bids. So we're keen to accommodate ad hoc requests for support, but we will be proactively developing consortia with the aim of applying to particular funding streams in the future. And we've just started doing that recently. We're also developing our connections with funders and other support organisations so we can provide prospective applicants with the best advice possible and understand funder requirements better. We think that one of the most important issues for industry in applying for funding is understanding the needs of clinical or service staff and academics. So it's important for the Hub to remain as a neutral party and to be able to negotiate difficult areas in funding, such as funding matches and timelines. We're able to signpost potential applicants to appropriate funding schemes, and we've got sector intelligence on a huge number of different things, such as assessment panel members and successful applicants from previous funding rounds that might be useful. One of the most important things we can do to improve bid success rate is to triage proposals against funder criteria and advise where's the mismatch. We can advise you on where you meet criteria and what might be missing or where the risks are. We've also developed the service so that it starts at the beginning of the bidding process, so we can provide a staggered bid review which provides feedback on an application at various stages rather than leaving everything right until the final bid is prepared or the last minute. So if we're supporting an early technology readiness level bid, and if it's appropriate to do so, we would be looking also to give advice on funding all the way through to adoption, so that you don't have any gaps along the route. We also want to focus on the major opportunities for maximum impact in health and care in Wales. And we've got some online resources that are in development, but our funding web page is already up and running. The link to it is just at the bottom of the slide here. That already provides a snapshot of the opportunities that are available. So it would be great if you wanted to have a look there. You can see what we're advertising at the moment. So in terms of low risk areas where we think there's the most opportunity for supporting applications, so we're most interested in digital and AI, mental health, early detection and diagnosis, precision medicine, particularly with regard to genomics, and healthy ageing. We think that these are the areas where Wales has the best expertise, and they're also likely to appeal to a variety of funders, and they're obviously integral to a number of government policies. So we also want to focus on highly collaborative, high value and high technology readiness level funding applications. So the reason for this is to try to deliver the greatest impact. So some of you who were at the last presentation I gave may have seen a very similar slide to this. So obviously there are a huge number of opportunities to apply for funding. In our funding strategy, we've identified a few that we think are the most likely to give us successful outcomes that will promote health and care for the people of Wales. So the ones we've picked out as important are Innovate UK, smart funding, the HCRW Research for Patient and Public Benefit Scheme, NIHR Health Technology Assessments, the AI in Health and Care Awards, Horizon Europe, as you might expect, and Cardiff Capital Region funding. So these are areas that we really want to focus on. We would still support applications to other streams which do fit with the funder criteria, but those will just be our focus areas. So that very briefly covers the funding services. I have picked out some opportunities, as I said earlier, that are available at the moment. These are not intended to be a comprehensive review of what's out there. It just gives you an idea, and it will hopefully inspire you to potentially make an application in the future. So the first one is the Biomedical Catalyst. So this is a really great opportunity for SMEs to lead an application together with collaborators from academia or the NHS or other industrial partners. The call asks for innovative solutions to health care and healthcare challenges, and includes tailored treatments that either change the underlying disease or offers potential cures. Activities must be pre-market and commercial and technical feasibility must have already been demonstrated. You can apply for up to 2 million of funding, and they are closing quite soon, so on the 25th of May. And Life Sciences Hub are keen to support any prospective applicants, so we can help with making connections or providing a bid review. So EPSRC have recently opened a new funding scheme, the Pilot Digital Health Hubs. So this is an opportunity for academics, industry and the healthcare sector to collaborate for the transfer and sharing of knowledge and skills. And the idea is to enable new partnerships and develop new ideas. So being EPSRC, the focus is on ICT, maths and engineering and development of innovative technologies through those routes for health. Funding is available for up to 3 years and the maximum full economic costs per application is £4 million. These close on the 28th of June for expressions of interest, so there's quite a bit of time there to put something in, if you were interested. Another EPSRC call that's recently been announced is the second Turing AI World Leading Researcher Fellowships. So funding's available to undertake world-leading research to advance the field of AI in the UK. So unusually for a fellowship, applications are welcome from academia, industry and the third sector. And these are chunky awards at up to 5 million for over 5 years. And they close, I believe it's an expression of interest in the first case, on the 14th of July. So these are for relatively experienced individuals. So if you are thinking of applying, I would have a look at previous award recipients just to make sure you're at the right level. So anyone who's heard me talk before will probably have heard me talk about health technology assessments. So these awards are really key. So they're at the end of the innovation pathway and they are the point at which it's determined whether a new technology is better than a current standard to work out which is best for the benefit of NHS patients. So they offer a researcher-led work stream in any area. At the moment, the closing date is actually tomorrow, but we are anticipating another call. So these calls are regular throughout the year. So we're expecting the next call to close September time. There's also a commissioned work stream with very specific calls that you can look out for on the NIHR website. And key questions to ask of these awards is who does the technology work? How does the technology work? For whom? At what cost? And how does it compare with alternatives? And there are a couple of links at the bottom of the slide there to work out whether your technology is more relevant to the health technology assessment scheme or an earlier scheme in the pathway. So Innovate UK have just launched a revised SMART grant funding scheme. So the idea remains to support game-changing, innovative, disruptive and ambitious ideas which lead to new products, processes or services with clear, considerable potential to impact the UK economy or productivity. So the scheme is open quarterly. The next deadline is the 27th of July. An SME has to lead, but it's a great opportunity to collaborate with another partner. The total cost of the project range from £100,000 to £2 million, and commercialisation isn't in scope. Any area is welcome, but it's a good plan to overlap with the grand challenges of Innovate UK. So I just wanted to highlight some of the other relevant opportunities that are out there at the moment or coming up. So there's the Cardiff Capital Region Wider Investment Fund. That's currently open to projects seeking to radically address the challenges which face the region. The providers are particularly interested in clusters of expertise for regional benefit. And some indications are that medical devices and diagnostics are of particular interest. We know that the Moondance Foundation are anticipated to launch a funding call for early detection and diagnosis of cancer in the next few months, with up to £1 million available. There's also the ESA NHS Future Hospitals Initiative, which is open until September, I believe, and it's looking for projects seeking to use space technologies for the benefit of the NHS ecosystem, which is an interesting one. It's also important to remember that organisations such as GSK and Johnson & Johnson offer funding which may be of interest to many of the people on the call as well. We do anticipate as well in the future that sustainable funding is going to be coming up, but we don't have any specific calls highlighted for that at the moment. So just to summarise, so the call to action for you is really, if you want to write an application for funding at the Hub, we can help you. We can help you apply for collaborative innovation funding. We'd like to know if there's anything else that we can do to help you apart from the services that I've outlined today. And also, if you do want support from us, if you could approach us as early in the funding pathway as possible, that would be fantastic. So if you do want to get in touch to request support, then the best point of contact is probably my email address, which is just down here at the bottom. You can also get in touch at the generic Life Sciences Hub email address up the top there. And I see John has appeared, so I shall stop talking now and stop sharing my screen if I can.
Apologies, sir. I didn't mean to pop up as an indication for you to stop. As in, I was happy to hear more. But brilliant, yeah. And so I think, you know, as Life Sciences Hub Wales is developing the services, this is a really big part of the offering, isn't it, Sarah? And I think, you know, we've got a really knowledgeable team with a lot of experience in this area, and it can be a challenging area to kind of get right. And I think it's a journey that people have to go on, and you know, the team within Life Sciences Hub Wales are here to kind of help you on that journey, essentially, to try and get you know, people into a better position, more confident around applying for funding. So Sarah, thank you very much, and as always, I'm sure you'll be getting people emailing through soon, as you know, as everyone can get an idea of what they want to kind of be aiming at over the next kind of 12 months or so. So thank you very much. That brings us to the end of this meeting, and a little bit shorter than last time, but I think everyone will agree and join me in thanking all the presenters and for taking the time to come and join us today, and also the time to research and pull together the presentations. I think, you know, what we've been able to do over the past couple of sessions is really walk through that journey of kind of health and care, and look at how innovation is kind of playing its part in supporting the health and care kind of sector, both in Wales and wider afield. But there's lots of stuff out there, and there's lots to be done, and we would obviously, the innovation network here is to bring people together to share their experiences around innovation and their successes and also their learning. So you know, please do reach out to each other or reach out to the presenters if you want to hear more. And yeah, we look forward to seeing you in what will be the summer meeting. And yeah, maybe we just need to work out what that's going to look like for the next session, but we're looking forward to seeing everyone in the next couple of months. So thank you very much to everyone for joining us, and have a good rest of your day. And thank you to those who asked questions and asked some things into the chat. And yeah, if you have any questions, please feel free to reach out to us. But other than that, have a good start to your week. And I'm just being encouraged to let everyone know that this will actually be my last Innovation Network meeting today. So I will be moving on to a new role. Ironically, I will be moving to be the program manager for the National Robotics program in Wales in the next couple of weeks. So I've really enjoyed looking after the Innovation Network over the past 2 years, and it's a fantastic place to really learn about things that are on the horizon and really good things that are happening in Wales. So I'll definitely still be coming back in and touching base to kind of keep up to speed with what's going on. So thank you very much to everyone, and yeah, thanks guys. And I've met so many people through the network, and yeah, it's a really good opportunity in these times when we don't get a chance to go and meet each other face to face. So have a good week, have a good rest of your day, and again, thank you to the presenters, and we'll see you all very soon. So thank you very much, everyone.